What does perseverance mean to you? Are you interested in how to unlock your goals? Well, our next guest has been at IBM for 21 years and has persevered through numerous obstacles, challenges, and roles throughout her journey at IBM. She's also an author of an awesome book called Tugboat Tank. Before we bring our next guest onto the show, did you know that 75% of the people watching are unsubscribed? Yes, I'm talking to you and you and you. All right, go ahead and smash that like. And while you're at it, why don't you hit the notification, because this is a two-part series that you won't want to miss. And if you stuck around this long, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button. All right, here we go. Howdy, folks. Wait, am I Southern? Nah, but I like being weird, so we're going to stick with it. This is the Daily Tech Show. I'm your host / podcaster, John Myer, and our guest today is giving us inspiration and unlocking the secrets behind her success in order to persevere through some tough times, including follow your dreams. Oh, before we bring on our next guest, is anybody in the mood for some devilishly good coffee? All right, so how about you grab yourself 10% off using the promo code Myer for Diabolical Coffee. The link's in the description below. Go ahead, click on it, grab yourself some coffee, and sit down for the rest of our show. All right, please join me in welcoming Jamie Hughes, Global IBM Security Leader for AWS and Marketplace at IBM. Jamie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
All right, Jamie, you know what? We have a multi-part series happening, and this is the first time I'm putting one together because I believe you have so much valuable content and information to share with our audience. You know, in this first part, we're going to talk about you as a leader, as an author, and your perseverance and how it all started. Next, I want to share with the audience that you're also a content creator with 2 minutes or less. So how about we give everybody a little bit of backstory, how you and I got together? What do you think?
I love it. Absolutely.
All right. So I had a conversation with Sandy Carter, a VP of AWS for public sector partners and programs, join my show. And we talked about empowering women. And you know what? You commented on one of the posts. And afterwards, I reached out to you, and this is how the conversation got started.
Sandy's been fantastic. So when I saw that you were interviewing her, as a woman leader, she's one of the first women that I really started to follow. Her presence on social is phenomenal. And when I saw you really highlighting women in leadership, I just wanted to be a part of it.
So that is, well, you know what, folks? I bet you take a look up here at the podcast I did with Sandy Carter. Now, I also want to know, you and I scheduled this before I joined Turbonomic and IBM companies. So it just so happens we now work together. Small world.
You are so lucky, John. I just got to tell you, you are so lucky that you get to work with me.
I love your personality. The conversation that we had that really got all this started, I was like, let's do this. I think we talked 15 minutes. We had a conversation and I was like, okay, here's the document. Here's what we're doing. What do you think? Let's do it.
Fantastic. We sure did.
Now, how about we give everybody a little bit of backstory on you and talk about your journey?
Of course. John, been with IBM about 21 years. In that, I have I've done a variety of different roles, most of which in sales, many in the ecosystem, but it's just been an incredible journey. Yes, when I said 21 years, I did start when I was 10. I just want to lay that groundwork.
Well, I knew IBM was starting young for those prodigies, but I didn't know it was 10.
Well, we'll have to talk about my son. He's 10 right now, so he's on his pathway.
Oh, wait. How about, you know what, folks? The second part of this, we are going to talk about your son. So hang tight. You make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and notify so that you can get the second part of this awesome conversation. Okay, Jamie, back to it.
Awesome. So John, I'm an author. I'm a marathon runner. I play piano. I do many other things. And I think being a mom and a wife, I've got 3 kiddos. I've got 3 fur babies. Life's messy. And, you know, when I think about IBM and when I think about just being a mom, it's that messy life, but it also, when you're talking to individuals and when you're communicating and engaging, I think that's also all comes together to make a very authentic person. And I think that's been one of the ways that I've been able to connect with a lot of other women in the industry. They can relate to life being messy. They can relate to, having to drive their kids to sports. They can relate to lessons that they're learning in corporate America that they want to teach their kids.
So, Jamie, when we talked and it was about the empowering women in tech, you were telling me a story when you were on maternity leave, correct? But
Right.
you came across a huge challenge. But during that, you also talked about being an author and a book that you published that kind of correlates along with the story. I'd like to share with everybody, the title of that book is Tugboat Tank. I want to know how this came about. Why did you create this book? And by the way, it's very inspiring. And I'm going to read a little bit later on.
It actually ties very closely to my career at IBM. And quite frankly, I got to thank IBM for just teaching me over the years the lessons that I'm now teaching my kids. So, John, I said I was an author. I never originally thought of myself as an author, but I'm a storyteller. I'm a speaker at IBM, and I always think about technology in a way that I can tell a story, because the story, it shows the value of whatever technology you're trying to sell or to talk to customers about. And so being a storyteller has always been very natural. Just ask my husband. He tries to correct me all the time. But in truth, I used to stand at the edge of my kid's bed. And when I would do that, I would be, standing and going, the waves are rushing and the wind is blowing. And, I started telling the story about a little tugboat. But the little tugboat, I didn't just make that up. I was going through a pretty difficult time in my career at IBM. And in that career, we had to downsize an organization. And let me tell you, the individuals that I worked with were outstanding professionals, amazing people. This had nothing to do with, their talent. It just had to do with the fact that we had to downsize. And I had a choice to make. The choice was simple. I could leave and take another role and somebody else could do that job, or I could do it and I could help every single person along with their journey to make sure that they landed okay. And for me, I felt so invested in my team and I cared so much about each one of them that I had to deliver a really, really crappy message in a very kind way. And then I wanted to help them. So it was the most difficult, probably 24 months of my entire career at IBM. But what I learned in those 24 months is sticking with something, persevering. I teach my kids, do not give up. I stayed with it even though I could have left. And then the other piece was kindness. We all need to be kind. And when we have a really difficult message, we need to make sure that we can deliver it in a very kind way. So that really started my process in really telling the story of Tugboat Tank. Tugboat Tank is a story of perseverance and kindness. It's not directly related to the story I shared. It's in a way that kids can understand and relate.
So I think your story does capture that, the difficulty, the perseverance, the kindness. And you also mentioned looking out for others. All right. Those on your team. I'd really, if you don't mind, are you okay if I read a section of the book? Because I think this is key to understanding not only you, but your journey that you went through and giving you a little bit of insight into personality.
Love it.
Okay. By the way, I didn't read this to my kids yet because I didn't want any of the pages bent and I wanted to keep it. But I will definitely have that up there. All right. One day, a large storm was moving in. Tank looked around the marina and noticed that 3 of his friends, Maddie, Connor, and Olivia, were not safely docked in the marina. He knew he had to find them before the storm struck, so he started to look. As he was looking, the wind started to pick up. The waves grew larger, and the sky turned dark and angry and gray. Then the rain started to fall. Tank knew he had limited time to save his friends and help them get back to the marina. He got right to work. Now, first of all, your little bit of recap of what you went through and the story you created. By the way, I got chills just reading that because I can correlate, I can put those two things together. Now, granted, this is a kid's book, but I think even adults could read it and gain a little something from it and understand it.
I think especially now when we are all dealing with COVID. COVID has been so difficult for kids and parents, and having to persevere and get through things, it's put a lot of difficulty in the lives of every single person.
So part of that, share a little bit more from the book, but don't worry, folks, I'm not going to spoil it because it's an interesting ending for you. But part of it is, Tugboat Tank is looking after the marina, or in your case, a team. But 3 of the boats aren't back yet. Tugboat has to go out and find and try to rescue them. So the first one happening just when things are starting to get rough. Now, granted, you had to lay off or give people the bad news. So things are starting to get rough. And this is all what I'm correlating from it. So feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm not, I can just see what you were going through.
Yeah, it was incredibly therapeutic. Just being able to write down and communicate and share with my kids was a little bit of a therapy for me.
Going on, and I can see that you put yourself into it. The next thing I want to talk from the book is, the next boat out of the 3. Well, wait, folks, I'm not even going to tell you. I'm not even going to spoil it for you. In fact, you have to look in the description below for a link to the book, because I think you should purchase it, read it. It's very inspiring. Your kids will gain a lot from it. Sorry, Jamie, I was not going to spoil it.
I love it. Thank you so much. It's, it's one of those things where you kind of put your heart out there. And when you're sharing your story like this, it's very personal. And I think it's very personal because of, what I was going through with my team was very personal.
Now, before I read the last quote from the end of the book, I think everybody has noticed now that Tugboat Tank, and behind you is Tugboat Tank. So I hope everybody realizes that, yes, I didn't plan this. She planned it and surprised me today.
No, absolutely. Thank you, John. I do want to say one more thing. I talked about IBM inspiring me for this, but something else IBM did that really helped to bring this to fruition. And it was a journey that I took up to New York. And IBM had sponsored an Eminence event. And in that Eminence event, there was a gentleman, Ruben Gonzales, and also members of the Jamaican bobsled team. And Ruben said something, John, that just has stuck with me all these years. And it was that if your dreams aren't a little bit laughable, they're probably not big enough. And so he had no idea at the time that I had a friend of mine that said, you should write that story down, when I told her what had inspired me for it and everything else. So I wrote it down on the plane flight from New York to Atlanta, coming back from the IBM Eminence event.
And when you wrote it down and you started reading it, were you laughing at all, going,
oh my gosh,
yeah, this is totally laughable, but I should do this, right?
Well, I mean, it was one of those things where I thought, oh my gosh, I'm sure my punctuation's off. I'm sure I'm doing this movie style, right? The whole story is playing through my mind like a movie. And I'm having to now try to figure out how to put a picture to a page. It was a difficult process, but I didn't do that until years later when I went on maternity leave.
Awesome. You know what? That's pretty good advice, because dreams do come in all shapes and sizes. Now, I also know you were pretty involved in mentoring and helping women return to the workforce. Can you share us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. IBM has a variety of different programs to help women reskill. And where this kind of started for me was not a specific program that IBM had. It was when I was on maternity leave and many of my friends were having kids at the same time. And they actually chose to leave the workforce for a couple of years. I came right back. So I didn't have to have my skills retooled. But I knew how valuable these women were. I knew how smart they were. And they felt insecure about actually coming back to the workforce because the technology had changed so much. And so what I love so much about IBM is they're reinvesting in these women that are so amazing, and they're calling it a tech reentry program. And so that kind of came a little bit later. But I always work with these women and making sure that they had the skills and giving them another chance to come back and make a meaningful difference. It's a meaningful difference for them because they're building those skills, and they're having fun actually being back in a corporate job, dressing. They're not wearing their, yoga pants every day, but they like that too. But it's fun for them to get back, and they're a huge benefit to IBM, and they're a huge benefit to the workforce. So, I'm super passionate about this. I mentor anywhere between 5 and 10 young women all the time, and young men, by the way. And I think it's important to do both, because this generation is going to be the future leaders. And, I want them to feel the same passion I have and to do the same thing to the generation behind them.
Jamie, that's truly inspirational. I'm glad that you are mentoring. You've through some tough times, but you're able to give this back. You're able to mentor those who will be the future. So that's truly inspiring.
Thank you. You know what? It's fun. To me, every time I mentor somebody, it reinvigorates me. And I'll be having a difficult call, and I'm like, I just need one of my mentees to talk to. And I'll pick up the phone and start sharing some of the great things that we have at IBM, or some of the art of the possible. And after that call, I feel like I can conquer the world.
Jamie, I know you've been at IBM for 21 years, or since you were 10. So it really sounds like an awesome company that has your full support behind you and during your time. So it's nice to know that you can always look up to them, or you can always lean on them to, make it through those tough times.
I absolutely. I've had some of the best leaders in the industry, including my existing leadership team. And I'm telling you, when I talk about supporting women, they are behind women and men 100%. It's just been an incredible journey.
All right. So, Jamie, before we end our first part, I want to read the quote from the back of the book, and I want your insight on it. I wanted to know why. This is going to be your parting words for the audience. All right.
All right.
All right. Here we go. And I hope I do it as well as you, by the way. I'm sure you do it from heart, but I'm going to give it my best.
I can't wait to hear it, John.
Tugboat Tank is a story of perseverance. Even when he doubted himself, Tugboat Tank would not give up. When have you persevered? Remember that you can do it, and remember to believe in yourself. Tell us, the story behind that quote.
So many times in life, especially I see it more in women than I do with men. But so many times I hear women second guessing themselves. I see them with the same credentials as men, and they don't want to go after the role the same way that a man might. And a man just has that natural confidence. And so, I've been in that many, many times where I've doubted myself. And some of the most amazing men that have mentored me over the years, they actually would put me in for things that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're putting me in for that role. And it just was an incredible piece. So part of that was, I think, me doubting myself in different roles throughout my career, and me wanting my kids and my daughter and my sons to not doubt themselves. And so, it's just, for me, the self-doubt can inhibit your career growth and your ability to really show all of what you can offer to your company and to your clients.
Awesome. So, Jamie, I know I said that would be like your parting words, but do you have any parting words for the audience? Because I always know that you're never at a loss for words.
I'm never at a loss for words. So I just have to say, you can do anything you can put your mind to. That's something I tell my kids, and it's something I tell my mentees. And if you think of it, go and develop a plan and go and do it. That's how you make the art of the possible possible.
All right, Jamie, thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. Also, congratulations on the book and your perseverance. It's a truly inspiring story.
Thanks, John. And I'm so glad I get to work with you.
Yeah, same here. And we get to do this recording. This is awesome. We have a part 2. In fact, folks, before we wrap things up, you might want to hit like, subscribe, and notify, because we're just getting started with this mini series. And in our next episode, Jamie's going to talk about the content she creates, 2 minutes or less. Also, we're going to touch on her son's video and how IBM is trying to sign him up already. So, folks, what's that?
I said, at 10 years old, that's when it all starts.
See, exactly. 21 years ago for you. And so, folks, Jamie Hughes, Global IBM Security Lead for AWS and Marketplace at IBM. This is the Daily Tech Show. I'm your host, John Myer. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, John.
We're out of here.